Blessings. Welcome. I would love to welcome everybody who is here today for our stream. We're going to be introducing our brother Rob, who is actually going to be doing our presentation for today on missing Black girls. So, we're going to be talking about why Black women and Black girls are 4 times more likely to go missing and what we can do about it. So, I just want to make sure. Let me see. Um, so Brother Rob, I think you might have to step out and then come back in because for some reason it's not allowing me to put you on the stream. So welcome to those who are here with us live. Honor and respect to our brother Jadorian. Shout out to the Tehuti Militia in the house. I also want to say to those of you who are here with us live, please feel free to engage with us in the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, we would love for you to go ahead and engage in the chat. If it's your first time here, welcome. This is Tehuti Ma'at. We are a resource mechanism for people of African descent. So Tehuti Ma'at is a grassroots cooperative. So we focus on bringing healing and revolutionary programming to people of African descent for the empowerment and resurrection of African people worldwide. So our presentation today, as I said, is going to be with our brother Rob. So welcome, brother Rob.
Hey, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much, Sister Nuff, for putting this together. This is a really tough topic, right? And normally when I come online and I'm doing, those that don't know, I do African martial arts. And so anytime you do martial arts, you really have to be pumped, excited, and I usually always am. But this topic is very serious. And so I wanted to make sure that we address it appropriately. So what I would like to do, Sister Nev, if I can go ahead and kind of take the helm here a little bit, is ask the audience to go, please invite your sisters, your daughters, your wives, please invite the women in your life, because what we're going to be going over is practical information, practical tips that you all can do, that we can do collectively to help keep particularly our women and girls safe. Okay. Now, I kind of came across this because I was just doing some research, just on missing Black girls. And I knew that this was a problem, right, in society. I knew this was something that, was just a problem. Just in social media, I see a lot of my newsfeed, right? People are looking for their daughters, they're looking for their sisters. And you have to ask the question, like, man, why do I keep seeing this stuff coming up in my social media feed? And so I was doing some homework and doing some research, and I went to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, their website, and I was shocked to see the number of Black girls that are going missing, and this was like right around the holidays, and it was like day after day after day, like, December 31st, someone went missing, January 1st, the 2nd, 3rd, right? It was just like back to back to back to back. And it was like, why is this happening, in such frequency? It was just shocking to me. So I continued to do a little bit of homework and research, and that's what I want to share with you all this evening, as well as some tips and things to keep in mind that we can keep all of our women and girls safe. So this is our presentation here, our title slide before seeing them outside, right? So again, this is meant to be shared with the women in your lives and the girls in your life, right? Daughters, sisters, wives, moms, so forth. And then, again, as Sister Neff mentioned, why Black women and girls are 4 times more likely to go missing. So next slide. So this is what I came across. This is an example here. What I came across. This is Lilani. She went missing. Miami Gardens, Florida, right? And this was like January 1st. This is like right at the new year. It's like, what's going on? Like, this is the time where kids are out of school, right? They're probably at home with their families. What is going on? Why are these children going missing? And then the next slide I thought was also, I don't know what's going on here, but this child also, same area, same location, Miami Gardens, Florida, right? And she was last seen on December 31st, the day before. And it's just a constant thing, right? Again, here, this is Zariah. Zariah went missing December 30th. She's from Alexandria, Virginia. She was last wearing a pink hoodie, checkered pajama pants, a green headband, and black slippers. Okay. And then we have here, and we're not going through all of them, and I'll tell you why in a second here. But this is Tamaya. She went missing in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And as a Virginia native, I was very surprised to see how many of our young Black women are going missing and girls are going missing in Virginia. She went missing December 30th, 2024. And then the next one is Millie here. Millie went missing December 27th from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So it's just, this constant trend that I was noticing and seeing, not understanding why this was happening. And so next slide. What startled me was just to see the numbers, right? So just, again, I just covered a few of the young Black girls that have gone missing and that, some are still missing, but records were 641, right? 641, of our daughters, sisters, right, are missing. And so that was as of January 3rd. Okay. Now, as of today, I checked today, it hasn't changed much. Okay. It's about 624. Okay. So thankfully, I'm hoping some of them have been found, but it's still hovering over 600. And so here's the, and I see there in the comment, yeah, it absolutely. Please y'all share this stream. Please share this stream so this information gets out. I appreciate that. So here's the issue though, right? So it's the hidden truth, right? According to the data by the FBI, okay, Black people in the United States are overrepresented among missing persons. While Black people make up around 14% of the U.S. population, we represent, right, 37% of the missing registered with the FBI's National Crime Information Center. White people, who make up 75% of the population, only account for 59% of missing persons, missing people. This data does not distinguish Latino and Hispanic origin, okay? And this is just a direct quote, okay, from the FBI data records, okay? So this is not just something that, we're just kind of making up just to say, hey, there's inequality, or it's not like we're just playing the race card. No, this is a real thing. This is really happening. So please take this seriously. Next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so the unspoken reality, okay? And this is, again, I'm trying to peel back the onion here and figure out why is this happening, right? The fact of the matter is that for young Black women, 20 years of age or younger, they make up only 2% of the U.S. population, but account for more than 15% of missing persons. That's a huge disparity. Or around 80,000 individuals. That's just in 2022. Again, that's from the FBI data records. I always like to quote the source there where this information is coming from. It's not just Brother Rob making this up. 40% of sex trafficking victims were identified as Black women. Now, understand that not all cases of missing persons are human trafficking or sex trafficking, but that's an important part of that, right? It's a big component of that is human and sex trafficking. And so we have to discuss that. We have to talk about that. In an interview with the Urban Institute, traffickers admittedly believe trafficking Black women would land them less jail time than trafficking white women if caught. So what that tells me is that Black women specifically are targeted because, traffickers in general, based off of this study, again, I quote my source there, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. According to this source, Black women are specifically targeted because, generally, broadly speaking, human traffickers believe that they would get less jail time if they were caught, okay? So we want to talk a little bit about human trafficking. Human trafficking is the fastest growing and second largest criminal industry in the world. So what we're talking about is our young women who, for whatever reason, however the circumstances has happened, they have been taken, right, away from their homes. And now they're, God knows where, right? And this is according to the International Labor Organization and the Walk Free and International Organization of Migration, okay? These are some of the signs of human trafficking. And I want you guys to please share this with, again, the women and girls in your life so that they are aware of the signs and they know what to look for if they themselves are potentially a victim of human trafficking or some of their friends maybe, right? So here's some of the signs, right? A would-be employer collects fees from a potential worker for the quote unquote opportunity to work in a particular job. A would-be employer refuses to give workers a signed contract or asks them to sign a contract in a language they can read. So a lot of times human trafficking happens when there's a language disparity, right? And the person being trafficked doesn't understand the language of those that are trafficking him or her. Second example here, a friend, family member, coworker, or student is newly showered with gifts or money or otherwise becomes involved in an overwhelmingly fast moving, and asymmetrical, meaning large difference in age or financial status, romantic relationship. Okay, so this is something to be mindful of. Okay, who are our children, kids, right? Are women, who are they letting in their lives? Third example here, a friend, family member, or student is a frequent runaway. This is something we have to talk about, guys. A frequent runaway or is thinking about running away. So if talking to my sisters here and my young girls specifically, if you're staying at home with mom and dad, you're thinking about running away, don't. Okay, it is dangerous out there. Please stay home, be with mom and dad, be with your family. And if you need help, there are resources out there that can help you in the situation that you're in. But running away from home is not the answer. Okay. Yeah, frequent runaway and maybe staying with someone who is not their parent or guardian. Next example, a family member, friend, co-worker, or student is developing a relationship that seems too close with someone they know solely on social media. Now, I realize social media is big, it's growing, we're on social media now, but this is another sign that can lead to human trafficking, right? Next one here, a family member, friend, or student lives with a parent or guardian and shows signs of abuse, right? Physical abuse, okay? So oftentimes human trafficking happens with people that are close to us, right? People that are close to you, okay? So it's something to be mindful of, and it can oftentimes start with abuse. Next one here, a family member, friend, or coworker is offered a job opportunity that seems too good to be true, right? Especially if they're like, hey, here's a great job and we're going to send you to this nice, beautiful place. And then next thing you know, the place is not so nice and beautiful, right? So be careful, right? What you believe. Last one here, a friend, family member, friend, or coworker is recruited for an opportunity that requires them to move, right? That's kind of what I was talking about, right? Move far away, but their recruiter or prospective employer avoids answering their questions or is reluctant to provide detailed information about the job. So those are some of the signs of human trafficking. Next, I want to cover just some basics here. Again, this is very important information, and I teach this in every women's self-defense class specifically. And this is it's an acronym, okay? It doesn't really roll off the tongue very well, but DDA, DDE is the acronym. And so these are the most important keys in terms of self-defense, period, but especially for women's self-defense, okay? So the first D is deterrence, right? So you want to make sure we deter a potential threat, okay? Obviously, you can't always deter that, right? You can't always stop someone from wanting to attack you, assault you, kidnap you, rape, right? But you want to certainly be able to detect it, okay? If you can avoid it, right? If you can't avoid the situation, you want to try to diffuse it. And if that fails, then you have to defend yourself. If hopefully you're successful in defending yourself and you can escape. Our goal is always to escape or to avoid these types of situations. Next slide. So the first one here is deterrence, right? So deterrence these are some tips to things you can do, right? Now, I don't care if, where your children are or where our women are. I'm thinking about school. I'm thinking about when we send our kids out to school, they're at the bus stop or they're in college, they're walking around campus, or they move out the house, all these types of situations, okay? So these are some of the things you want to do to kind of, help make yourself a harder target and provide some type of deterrence, to get a potential attacker to think twice, right? First one there, of course, carry yourself with confidence and alertness, right? You want to be alert and aware. You don't want to be looking down at your phone, okay? Right? I mean, that's it should be common sense, but a lot of people are walking around looking at their phone and not aware of their surroundings. So be confident, right? Walk confident, carry yourself with confidence. Next one here, carry a possible weapon in your hand, okay? This maybe not be something you think of, right? Who carries a potential weapon in their hand? But, a potential attacker is much less likely to attack you, right? If you're walking a big dog, right? Or you have maybe even an umbrella in your hand, some of the things that I give our students, again, talking women's and girls self-defense, and we have done this with Tahuti Ma'at. And if you're part of the Tahuti Ma'at militia, you guys will be getting this in your retrograde care guide next month, okay? But one of the things that we provide for them, I got it right here in my pocket actually, is just a keychain, right? It's a self-defense keychain. This is something you can just carry in your hand, real simple, very cheap, very affordable, okay? Just something like this, right? A pen also can work, but something like this, it can function as a mechanism to help defend yourself, right? So think about that. Carry something in your hand that could be potentially used as a weapon, especially if it's visible and the person can see that, right? Put multiple security features, right, around you, okay, around your home, around your car, right, your vehicle. You got car alarms. Obviously, you got home security systems. You may have a dog in your home, right? All these kind of things help. You want to make sure you have lights around your home. Make sure you got plenty of light, plenty of visibility, okay? Maybe install cameras, right? There's all these kind of things and tips that you want to do specifically around your home, okay? But I realize a lot of incidents don't happen at the home, and so you want to provide whatever you can, right? And depending on the situation that you're in. I always tell folks, though, having a car alarm is a great self-defense tool, right? Because just hitting that car alarm, right, on your keychain, and it blares an alarm, that can be a safety mechanism, okay? If you're in a parking lot or transiting between your car and your home or work or office. Yep, so put multiple security features around your home. And then last one here, of course, walk with others, right? We hear this a lot, walk with others or in a crowd or in a group, okay? This oftentimes isn't always possible, but to the greatest extent possible, make sure you have someone else with you or around you, and be aware, right, of others who may be around you, okay? All right, next slide here. So I'm not trying to go too fast, but I do want to make sure we cover everything in detail. This is probably the most important one here, and this is early detection, okay? You want to make sure that you stay alert, you're aware of your surroundings, and think about, potentially where someone could be, right? Meaning that hidden areas, right? Is there a bush over here? Is there a tree over here? You're walking down a sidewalk, right? Is there a car right here? Is there somebody in that car, right? Or if there's a car approaching you, right? So be mindful of that. Look behind you. Is there someone walking behind you? You want to be mindful. You want to be listening, right? Don't have your earbuds in, as you're walking down the street or going to the subway or on the bus, okay? So be constantly aware of your surroundings and hidden areas and people. These are some indicators if you do spot someone and you're not exactly sure what to think, right? So these are some big indicators. So one is if they're clearing their hands. What this means is if I have a phone in my hand or something like that, and you see me, right, and all of a sudden I put my phone away, right? I put my phone away to clear my hands. Now my hands are free. Or my hands are in my pocket. I might be right behind you, and then all of a sudden I pull my hands out, okay? So this is what I mean by clearing your hands, okay? With you see someone clearing their hands, this can be a potential sign that they are preparing to do something malicious, right? Another indicator would be hidden hands, right? So if you can't see their hands, right? Their hands are in their pockets and you don't know if they have a potential weapon or what's in their hand, right? So that's also something to be mindful of. You always want to be able to see the person's hands. If their eyes are scanning, right? If you see me behind you and I'm doing this number, right? And I'm looking around to see who else is around, who else is going to see me, right? Those are scanning eyes, okay? So you want to be mindful of that. If you see that indicator, okay, that's not a good sign, okay? If it's somebody you think you've seen before, right? Maybe you feel like you've seen this person the other day and it's kind of random that this person would be here or in this neighborhood or in this area, that's an indicator, okay? I always tell folks also to be mindful of the neighborhood that you're in, right? So if you know your areas, hopefully you know your neighborhoods and where you live, what's a safe neighborhood and what's maybe a sketchy area, right? Neighborhood that is maybe not so safe. So be mindful of that. You certainly want to be on a higher alert, really anywhere, because these kind of things can happen anywhere. But know your surroundings and be mindful where you think incidents are more likely to occur. One of the things that I do is look at the crime data, right? There's websites you can go that cover like city data. I don't know the website, but it's like city-data.com or something like that. But it covers, the crime in your area. You can do it by zip code. It tells you different incidences and crimes and things like that happen in your area. So those are kind of things to keep mindful of. One of the things, another indicator here is they ask you a question, right? So if somebody is, it might sound innocent, but they might approach you and they say, hey, I'm looking for directions. Can you help me find so-and-so? And next thing you know, they're trying to attack you, grab you, get close to you, or assault you in some other kind of manner, right? So be mindful of those that come to ask you questions. And then the last one is not respecting your boundaries, right? So they approach you very closely. They come into your face, right? They're not respecting your private space here, okay? So the first thing we teach in women's self-defense is to create that barrier, right? So you want to kind of bring your hands up to create distance and space between you and the other person, taking that step back, creating that space, creating that barrier. The bottom line, though, is to trust your gut, right? If it feels like it's unsafe, it probably is, and so you want to make sure you avoid that situation, which gets into our next slide here. So avoidance, okay? So these are some things we can do practically to avoid when we do detect something that in our gut gives us that warning signal, right? That something is not right, okay? Walking into a busy area, right? So if there's an area you can go to that's a little bit more busy or there's people, right? You want to try to walk towards that area, right? Even if you were going to your car, maybe go somewhere else first, okay? Involve someone else, okay? Involve someone else. So maybe, if you're in an apartment complex, maybe you're knocking on doors, involving somebody else, or you stop somebody else to ask them a question, or you go into a restaurant, okay? So these kind of things help, or maybe even just picking up the phone and making a phone call and saying, hey, by the way, there's somebody here behind me, right? And I'm not sure what to do, okay? So involve someone else is another avoidance tactic. Obviously running, right? Escaping the situation, yelling for help. Absolutely. If you're driving, certainly if you feel like you're being followed, right? Certainly drive to a public area, right? Just to make sure if you're going home, do another lap around the block. Drive to a police station, okay? So you want to always be mindful when you're on your way home or anywhere. Hey, is someone behind me? Have I seen this person before? Are they following me? A lot of times in these cases, kidnapping cases, the person knows their victim's routine, right? They know when you go to work, they know when you go to school, they know, when you get home, right? They know your routine. And so they plan it out in many cases, right? It's not always, in some cases it is just, they see you and they see a moment of opportunity, right? And they assault or kidnap their victims. Okay, next one here is when we can't avoid the situation, right? We feel we've done what we can to deter a potential threat. However, we detected that threat, hopefully successfully early detection of that threat. We were not able to avoid it, and now the threat's in front of us, right? The person's in front of us, or they've approached us, and this person is a potential threat, okay? So some of the things to do to kind of diffuse the situation, if diffusing just simply means to kind of, we talk about verbal judo, right? Try to talk the person out of whatever it is that they intend to do, okay? One of the things you want to think about doing is to try to get them talking and keep them talking, right? Keep them talking, get their mind off of their intention. This is not always easy to do, and it may not even be possible. So understand that, okay? Regardless, though, diffusion will help you with the next step. The other thing you want to do is keep distance between the attacker and the target, right? Like I talked about, keeping your hands out, right? Talk to them with your hands in front, right? So it creates a little bit of a barrier, right? Even just the hands creates a little bit of a barrier between you and the person, right? Obviously, don't wander into corners, okay? Be mindful where you're walking and where you're stepping and where the exits are, right? Where can you run? If you need to book it, where can you go, okay? What's your escape plan? So you want to be scanning and thinking about that if you find yourself in that situation. Of course, maintain eye contact, use a firm, strong voice as well. Again, this kind of goes back to deterrence. You don't want to pose yourself, because here's the thing, right? We understand that criminals, they target victims that they perceive as weaker than themselves, right? They're not going to go after a hard target. Typically they're going after someone that they feel they can overpower and take control of, right? Either again whether they're talking about abuse or assault, kidnapping, whatever their intention is, right? That's what they want to do. Obviously, if it's a robbery, just make sure, just obviously give them what they're asking for. It's not worth your life, right? If they're trying to get your car keys, they're trying to get money, credit cards, whatever it is. I don't know how common that is anymore. I feel like it certainly was. It's still very common, obviously, but it seems like it's less common now. But that may not be the case, right? Bottom line is never let your guard down. Okay, never let your guard down. Make sure you keep your guard up and be aware in all cases. Because even if you're trying to defuse a situation, the person can still attack you and invade that space. Next one here, of course, is defense, right? So defense is difficult, right? And that's the last step. If you get to this step in terms of defense, the second to last step, if you get to this point, everything else has not worked, right? So this is not your first choice, right? This is never, I don't, when we teach women self-defense, a lot of times you're just teaching defense, right? But this is the last thing you should want to do in a situation, is have to physically defend yourself, okay? This is if everything else failed. You couldn't defuse the situation, you couldn't avoid it, right? Deterrence didn't work, okay? This is the last resort if everything else has failed. Okay, so obviously, first thing is using a weapon or tool, right? We did talk about the keychain that you can use, but we also, obviously nowadays you carry firearms, right? And that's a perfectly legal form of self-defense. Just again, long as you understand the moral, legal, ethical uses of that firearm, and you're justified in the use of deadly force. But that is a tool or weapon of self-defense, absolutely. So that's the first thing I tell people to do, is to look for a tool or weapon or something to defend themselves. Don't try to just box somebody. Okay, I get it. Self-defense, right? In a lot of self-defense classes, they're teaching punching, kicking, things like that. This is fine. But when you're dealing with someone who's bigger than you, stronger than you, right? You don't want to trade punches with that person. Okay, it's not going to work out so well. So you need to assert the advantage. The other thing you want to keep in mind is having the element of surprise. And so in these situations, people who survive violent encounters are more likely to survive if they take on the mentality that they're not the victim, right? And instead, they make the potential perpetrator the victim or the prey. So they go from prey to predator, right? And so you have to, when you turn it on, you have to be able to turn it on. And having done women's self-defense and other self-defense classes in the past, and teaching for quite a few years, this is something that's very hard for people to do, right? It's very hard for them to kind of non-violent, nice, happy, lucky-going people, right? And especially our women and girls, right? They're not prone to violence, right? Generally speaking, okay? But you have to be able to have that switch. You have to be able to turn that on if you need to in these kinds of situations. But once you turn it on, the next step there is to follow through. You have to keep it on. So it's not just self-defense. It's not just, I'm going to hit the person one time and think that that's going to do it, and he's going to just leave me alone and I can go about my life. No, you have to follow through until the person is no longer able, right? They are no longer able to attack you, assault you, or whatever it is their intentions were. Okay. Again, keeping in mind the legal, moral, and ethical laws and things that we have to abide by. But those things keep in mind. The other thing I tell folks to do is to target, right? Target the growing eyes and throat, GET, right? Get, right? Growing eyes and throats. Doesn't matter how big you are, right? You get hit in the throat, you get poked in the eye or kicked in the groin, it's going to hurt, okay? And so those are the prime target areas, specifically being, for smaller folks, right? I'm talking about our women and our girls. Those are areas that you really want to target, especially if you have a tool or some type of object or weapon, blunt or edge weapon that you can use. And then finally, obviously, always use your voice, okay? Always use your voice. Always call for help, okay? Scream, yell as loud as you can. Always call for help. I always tell our young girls and women, whatever you do, don't go with that person, right? And so if you feel like your life's in danger, again, this is just Brother Rob here. My advice is never get in a car with that individual, right? Even upon threat of your life, right? Never get in the car with that individual. Your chances of survival, if you get in the car with someone or that person does take you, your chances of survival drastically decrease, okay, by going with a potential attacker, kidnapper, and so forth. So you want to do what you can to avoid getting into a vehicle or being taken by any means necessary. And then final step here, final slide is, of course, to escape. Okay, so this is, again, always the goal. Okay, so again, this is going to be involving running, driving, whatever means you have to escape that situation. Obviously, when it's safe to do so, call 911, call emergency services. You do want to make sure you also scan your body for potential injuries, particularly life-threatening injuries, broken bones, cuts, bruises, things like that could potentially hinder your ability to escape. Once it's safe to do so, obviously warn others about this person. Try to keep in mind what this individual looked like so you can identify that individual for the police report. And then, of course, last additional actions there are just counseling, right? Counseling, make sure, that's needed, okay? Going through traumatic situations, it's not like you just go back to work and school the next day, and be okay. These things affect us in many ways. Getting the proper medical care, and like I mentioned before, filing that police report. So DDA, DDE, these are the things to keep in mind. These are the most important aspects of women's self-defense. The techniques matter, how you throw a punch or how you throw a kick, all these kind of things are good. But the other aspects are the ones that are more effective, right? It's more effective to avoid a situation than to try to punch and kick your way out of it. Okay, avoiding it, not being there, is always the best way, and deterrence. So that's my presentation, guys. Like I say, not excessively long, but I did want to open that up to everyone. This is something I do locally within my community as far as women's self-defense, and I wanted to share it with as many people as I could. So hopefully you all got some value out of this. Those that are watching the recording, please share this video, right? Share this video again with your sisters, daughters, wives. Watch it with them, okay? Ask them questions, get their thoughts and feedback on it. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, Sister Neff.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Rob, for the presentation. I think there were so many really important elements that you lifted. I think a lot of, there's people who are coming in on different levels. Some people have street smarts, depending on the environment that you come up in. But I also think that there's a very significant aspect around how our children are engaging in the online space virtually that does put them at risk. So I just wanted to add that element because I think it's very important to recognize that, things are a little different right now. Sometimes people are building relationships with people who are presenting themselves with false identity online. They are specifically, like, the media itself is grooming our children, especially when we're talking about human trafficking, sex trafficking, just the hypersexualization. There's so many different elements where, unfortunately, in many cases, because I have listened to a lot of stories of people who have survived sex trafficking or human trafficking situations, and sometimes people have literally put themselves in that position. And until they get to a certain point where they do get help and they're able to go through therapy, they realize that they were even a victim to begin with, because of the circumstances they may find themselves in initially that drives them out into the street. So there's so many different dynamics. But then there's also people who are highly sheltered and, their children may not be exposed to these scenarios or even think that this is possible, like very oblivious, like you said, walking down the street on the phone, not paying attention to the environment. And I think that all of those dynamics, I just wanted to also just make sure that parents, children, whoever's watching is also being aware of the different dynamics that can put you in danger, so that you are able to be aware of how to protect yourself. I also wanted to lift this comment that came in early on. It says, Trade the Truth's daughter was recently found at the southern border because of her mother. So this was a rapper's daughter. I wasn't familiar with this story, but I actually just looked it up, who was found at the Mexican border. And I do think being aware of some of these stories, because like you said, this is something that's happening very common, but unfortunately we don't get these stories. They're not on the news. And I do think that that's the great thing about social media, is being able to know about these things that are going on. But those stories are really important because they do humanize and ground the gravity of the situation, because a lot of people are desensitized, right? We have the media is also desensitizing people to the reality of the danger that is out there. So I just wanted to express that, because once the person goes missing, it's not too late. It's still not too late. I don't know how long that girl was missing for, but at the end of the day, they found her. So I also want to express that even in Cabo Verde, where I'm from, there was a girl that went missing, and the mother of that little girl literally marched down the street for days, screaming, crying, saying she was going to find her daughter. And I swear to you, just the sheer act of that conviction and that like the spirit that she was moving with, that hope, and that, like, she was declaring with her voice that she was gonna, so everybody knew that that girl was missing. So someone was able to find her on the bottom of a boat that otherwise would not have known that that girl was missing. So I do want to say that if someone is missing in your family, if someone goes missing ever, not to forbid, that you use your voice and that you do everything that you can to still keep hope that you can find the missing person. So even if like, obviously that's what we want to avoid, but it's never too late. It's never too late. And I think having this conversation and lifting this reality is important. And, you know, we had a couple people on here who were expressing their gratitude. So I do want to shout out everybody who has been, you know, just present and expressing their support for what we're sharing. So shout out to Brother Tony, shout out to our sister Amma and everyone else in the Tutimat militia, Sister Arlene, reclaiming our throne. I do want to also express to everyone who's watching that Brother Rob mentioned we are going to have in one of our retrograde care kits the self-defense tool that Brother Rob shared about. And just so you know about what Tehutima is, right? We are a grassroots cooperative, but we do so many different things to holistically address the issues that we face as African people worldwide, right? As Black people, we're talking about dealing with these at the root, right? So even when we're talking about identifying ourselves as African people or saying things like dealing with our identity issue, dealing with there's so many different ways that we holistically address these things. For example, I want to talk about being present, right? We do a lot of programming around how we orient ourselves to the world and how we can be present, how we can be aware of our emotional state and our emotional reality. Those things are important holistically because you have to be present enough to be able to prevent a situation like that from happening, right? Even to be observant of your environment, to notice a threat requires you to be present to a certain degree. So all the work that we do around that, whether that's navigating eternity, the different programs we have, or if you're a member, you get access as well to our other exclusive gatherings, like our Intuit healing ciphers. Those are virtual healing circles where we're able to process things like emotional development and emotional healing. That's very important because another way that children are usually targeted is through emotional manipulation, right? And through their emotional wounds, for example, right? So people who have experienced child sexual trauma, who may have certain voids, certain affinities to be attracted to a predator or that a predator can feed on. So those are still holistic solutions. But again, you also want to address things in a direct sense where if the threat presents itself to you, you can respond to that. So the care kit that Brother Rob mentioned is a kit that we provide for our members. People who are at the higher rank, at the Galaxy rank, get that care kit every season as a complimentary offering, but also as a member, you can get access to it. You can get access to our virtual classes. Brother Rob actually does our warrior workout. He does the African martial arts every Wednesday at 9 p.m. So that's a virtual session. So in February, he's also going to be doing specifically a self-defense class. So I'll let you talk about that. But I just want to let people know like the benefits of becoming a member of our community. So the Tehutima Militia is our membership program. So as you can see by going to the Tehutima YouTube channel, there's different programs and different things that we do. We have Think, which is our educational platform. We do our study sessions. You get access to our virtual server, which we call the ARC, the African Rehabilitation Center. And most importantly, it's community, right? Like-minded community, an African-centered space where you're not only being able to work through your own personal development, but you're also able to connect with other people and be accountable to that growth and development in a way where you're supported to also bring forward and birth whatever creative ideas and visions that you have. So I just want to encourage people to tap into tehutima.org/join. The link is running across the screen there, and we'll put it in the description so you can find out about membership, and you can also reach out if you have any questions about joining.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sister Neff, for that. Yeah, so just to highlight a little bit about the offering for next month. So February, it's members only exclusive, but for month of February, we're talking about that fifth step we talked about as far as defense. Okay, so if you have to defend yourself or your daughters, sisters, wives have to defend themselves, what are some practical techniques they can utilize to do that? Okay, again, we're not talking about boxing somebody or kickboxing someone and things like that. We're talking about, hey, because the reality is, in those situations, you're only going to remember, one or two moves, perhaps at best, right? And so we want to cover the most essential, techniques or movements, to do specifically. What do you do if somebody grabs your arm? What do you do if somebody grabs your hair, right? You know what I mean? these kind of things, and they're trying to take you, you know. So how do you escape from those situations? And that's specifically what we're covering next month.
Yeah. And that is for our members. So this is a great time to join, right? At the Kingdom rank, which is our entry level membership. So you do a monthly contribution and you're able to not only support the other programs that we have, whether that's Organic Food for the People and our base in Brooklyn at Tahuti Mott Community Garden. You're supporting the overall work of the whole cooperative, but you also get access to these exclusive opportunities, right? So every month we do the healing circle. Every Wednesday, Brother Rob is doing the warrior workout. We also have a community connect every last Saturday of the month. And you just get access to all the other benefits, right? We do our Moonly Report, which is a newsletter that goes out for each month, tells you all the different things going on that you can participate in. So it's really a great space if you're interested in being exposed to educational information, whole range, right? Whether it's healing, art, or education. That's what we provide for the people who are members of Tehuti Ma'at. So tehutimaat.org, you can get more information. You can really read thoroughly about what we do on the About page. And I also wanted to just like circle back to like a few points. And I do want to ask anyone who's here present with us who has any questions to put your questions in right before we close out the session so we can answer any questions, or if you have any comments or anything you want to share. This is the moment for those who are here with us live before we close out. I did want to say that you're always better safe than sorry. I think that sometimes we can think, like undermine the danger of the world that we're in. And yes, we want to be positive thinking, vibrating at a high frequency, but we also need to be grounded in the reality that there are threats, there are situations where we can be in danger. And you're better safe than sorry. If you are feeling any type of sense of discomfort or something's not right, trust your gut, like Brother Rob said. But just remember, like, what if someone is mentally ill or emotionally unstable, they're not going to think logically. They're not going to process anything. Anything can happen. And in that case, you're better safe than sorry. Don't think about offending someone or anything. You have to be more present with your own self-preservation than not. And then afterwards, maybe it is a mistake. Maybe it is a misunderstanding. You can then go and correct that. You can apologize. But I do want to also state that because, yeah, you're better off safe than sorry, because once something escalates, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get out of it. So I like what you were saying about, for example, just don't get in the car, because I could actually see the naivety of a child, for example, thinking like if this person is saying, I won't hurt you if you get in this car, they may actually believe that and go get in the car, which is why you have to have these conversations with the children in your life, whether they're girls or boys. You need to make sure that they're aware of what, even if you think it goes without saying or it's common sense is not that common these days. So you got to have these conversations with the children. Very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Sister Enough, I'll just close out and say is that, unless there's some questions, but thank you so much for opening this space for this discussion. I did reach out to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children just to, ask the question, hey, why are there so many, cases of missing Black girls, specifically in my state in Virginia? I think about 10% of the cases are just in Virginia. So it was very shocking. I did not get a response from them. And then I reached out to the local news here as well. And likewise, I did not get a response. And so it does not seem to be a topic that is very popular. It does not seem to be a topic that is very, interesting to the media conglomerate or the audience, right? Because it's a business, right? And I get it. They're in the business of providing, viewerships, right? They need folks to watch. But I don't know. It's just not a topic that anybody really wants to touch or discuss, at least in the folks that I've reached out to. So I appreciate you opening the space for this.
Yeah, of course. And I think it'll be a continued dialogue that we have, because I would love to go in on some of those more, like the emotional side of it. the reality of what sex trafficking actually is and how people end up in the business of prostitution in a way that they are victimized and they don't realize that. There's a lot that I think we have a lot of misconceptions around when it comes to human trafficking, and just an ancestral historical perspective for us to remember that human trafficking began with the trafficking of our ancestors. So I think it's very important for us to have a lot more dialogue around the issue. And then that can be an opportunity for us to share more about what can be done about it and how people can be more activated, and even collaborating with other people who may have larger platforms to actually make space for this conversation to be more widespread. So I appreciate you putting together the presentation and being passionate about bringing this forward. I think specifically for Black men, is very important to recognize
Yes.
that role as
Yes.
protectors.
Yes.
And I think that your embodiment of that is very beautiful, powerful, and encouraging. And I want to encourage other brothers to also move into that space, because I'm sure there's a sense of fulfillment that also comes from that, because it is part of the role that we have. And obviously we don't only care about protecting Black girls and women. We also care about protecting Black men and Black boys. But again, if we're talking about the most vulnerable in our
Yeah.
society, as
Yeah.
our brother and our beloved ancestor Malcolm X said, the Black woman is the most disrespected in our society. And the
Yeah.
statistics, the quotes that you shared earlier really speak to that. The fact that
Yes.
it really is less of a threat to the actual traffickers if they're targeting Black women. But part of that is also because of the emasculinizing and the disempowerment of Black men. So we have
Yes.
to uplift each other because we need each other. If Black men
Absolutely.
were more in a posture of power and had that position of protecting our women and our girls, we also wouldn't be disrespected to that degree either. So it's definitely a double-sided um, coin as far as addressing this issue. So
Yes. Yes.
thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We do have this question on the screen here. Our brother Tony, who is asking, what he says, shout out to you and brother Rob for what you do for our community. My question is, do you have events in New York City? You did speak about your garden in Brooklyn, correct? Yes. So we do have Tehuti Mott Community Garden, which is based in Brooklyn. The garden usually opens in the spring. So from April to about October, there are community gatherings, community events that happen every month. I would love for us to plan something this year. Maybe Brother Rob can go do a self-defense class at the garden on a Sunday. So that's something we could definitely put in. If you want to stay abreast, I would suggest following our Instagram page, because usually when the garden season is active, we'll share more of that. We also have our link tree. So I'll put the link tree up there and I'll put it in the description. But you can follow Tehuti Ma'at um, on Instagram. And
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I definitely plan to get up there again this year. I was up in New York about 2 years ago. And so this year we'll definitely be back up there probably around the summer. So my 52 Blocks, Professor Mo is actually up there in New York, in Harlem. So I went up there to see him a couple years back. And so I'm definitely going to go swing back up there this year. And they got a convention later this year as well. So we'll definitely make sure everyone is aware of that event.
yeah, so you can find out about the events and things that we have coming up by joining. You can also, I suggest joining so you can also get the benefits of membership, right? And you can share that with your family. If you just want to support, maybe with a one-time donation, you can also contact us at Tehuti Ma'at World. So I also put that on the screen there. And ability to escape, run, resist, evade, and survive. Okay.
That's it.
Ashe. So I just want to see a few of these last comments before we close out. People of African descent does not matter in America, in this country. It's built upon violence against non-white and particularly Black Americans. Yeah. So I think to that point, we also just have to remember the reality that we're in. I know that a lot of people are reacting to the current political reality, but it is important to remember that because this has been an ongoing dynamic, ongoing system, right? We know how most of our ancestors got here. And some of our ancestors may not have been enslaved, but many of them were. And we know that that the ancestors, the people that built the divided states were people who were enslaved. So just recognizing the moral character or lack thereof of the divided states is something to be aware of, because we don't have to react to things that are expressing a truth that's the foundation and the root of this establishment. So I think if we can move into a state of response and be more encouraged in building, the dynamics and the things that we need in order to be sovereign and to govern and to take care of ourselves, that's the best approach that we can have. So I do want to encourage people to join our community, because that's what we're focused on. We're focused on building solutions. We built the garden, or organic food for the people, as a mission, is to expand beyond that one garden space. And it's because we know the importance of us being on land, right? Brother Malcolm also said revolution is based on land, right? So if we're not on land, or if we're not taking care of the way that we're nourishing ourselves, the ways that we're eating, the many dimensions of warfare that we're engaged in right now, it's important to make sure that you're feeding into solutions, right? And not just reacting to the ways that, we're politically being puppeted. So I just wanted to also say that, because yes, we know the situation that we're in, and there's plenty of things we can do about it, because there's so many problems, which means there are so many solutions. So I want to encourage you to join. If not Tehuti Ma'at, you join another African-centered organization that's focused on the liberation of African people. And that, to me, is the best way that we can engage, knowing that reality. And then this brother said, is there a possible way I can help sponsor an event? Yes, you can absolutely help sponsor an event.
Yeah, that's Brother Tony. I appreciate you, Brother Tony. Hey, man, thank you so much. He's always in my chat, always in the comments, man. I appreciate you, brother, supporting what we're doing. Thank you so much.
Yes, Brother Tony, the best way that you could engage with us about that, you can either text us at 646-883-MAAT. So that's not a number to make a phone call to, but you can leave a text. You can also email grow@tehutimaat.org, and we can definitely build on sponsoring an event, and we can organize something like that in New York. I think that would be great. Yeah. So I want to thank everybody again. I want to thank Brother Rob for being here with us, for supporting Tehuti Ma'at, Abibi Fahudie to the stragglers in, but we're closing out. So you'll be able to watch the recording. Please share this recording with others so that they're able to spread this message and actually engage in this conversation and be able to be preventative when it comes to the threat of our missing children. Okay. Any final words you want to express, Brother Rob?
I'm good, sister. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Appreciate y'all.
Okay. Thank you, family. Power.